Across Ireland are many heavily trafficked tourist sites like the Rock of Cashel below us. Many like Cashel are worth your time, while many are simply tourist traps. In today's exploration, we take you to the ruins of an outstanding lesser-known site that was home to many conflicts and the haunting story of a witchcraft trial that began a dark chapter in Ireland's history. This location is the best preserved medieval fortified monastery in the country, but is often overlooked for a more popular place of the same name, where the Book of Kells was once held. The first thing you may encounter here is St. Kiernan's Church and a few buildings that stood before the later addition of the monastery and after its fall became once again the main church before being abandoned in the 1800s. While peaceful and interesting, our goal today is the massive walled fortress of 7 abandoned castles ahead of us that till this day still holds the Secret of Kells, a tale of war and witchcraft. Our story begins in the ancient Irish kingdom of Ossory, which covered the counties of Kilkenny and Laois. By the early Middle Ages, an area existed there originally called Cananis, meaning head seat, that in time evolved to Kells. By 846, the High King of Ireland, Neil Kiley, invaded Ossory in an attempt to take over the ancient kingdom of Leinster. While traveling down the River Callan, they arrived at Kells. From there they crossed the river ford, but while doing so a servant began to drown, and Neil attempted to save him, but drowned instead. The nearby ancient church, where he's buried under a high stone cross, from then on came to be known as Kilree, or Church of the King, and the Callan River he crossed became King's River. In 1169, Norman mercenaries led by Strongbow, under the English King Henry II, would land at the request of Dermot MacMurrough, the deposed King of Leinster. By 1170, they captured Dublin and Waterford, and Strongbow had married Dermot's daughter, Aoife. The next year, Dermot died, and Strongbow inherited Leinster, causing King Henry II to lead an English army into Ireland to control the Norman lords there. Following more fighting, the 1175 Treaty of Windsor acknowledged Henry II as overlord of the conquered lands, including the area of Kells. In 1176, Strongbow, who had been allowed to keep Leinster, died, and by 1177, the peace fell apart as the Normans continued attacking the Irish. Henry then made the future King John, the Lord of Ireland, with the directive to expand the English holdings, which the Normans then did. In 1189, Sir William Marshal married Isabel, the daughter of Strongbow, and inherited his vast lands in Leinster. By 1192, Marshal granted the area of Kells to Geoffrey Fitzrobert, a knight who had followed Strongbow on the invasion of Ireland. There he built a motte and bailey castle in a village. Then, using monks from Bodmin and Cornwall, he also built an Augustinian priory in 1193 to the side of the town. Fitzrobert, then Lord of Kells, in 1185 married Basilia, who was Strongbow's sister. After her death, he married Eve de Birmingham, daughter of Robert de Birmingham, 1st Baron Athenry, in 1204. Fitzrobert would that year also become Steward of Leinster under William Marshal, but later would die while being held hostage by him at Hereford Castle in England. Fitzrobert's widow Eve would then go on to marry Sir Geoffrey de Marsh, the Justiciar of Ireland. De Marsh would later become a pirate, dying in exile after being implicated in the murder of Richard Marshal, the brother of William Marshal, the feudal overlord of her late husband. Following this, Fitzrobert's son William took over before dying in 1234 and handing the lordship of Kells to John Fitzgeoffrey, who died in 1243. Following his death, there seems to have been a period of conflict where Lord William de Birmingham, of their mother Eve's family line, was in conflict with Kells, burning both the village and monastery. During these years, William FitzJohn the heir was kept in prison, where he died in 1286. By around 1300, the Lepoer family, now known by the modern name of Power, under Sir Eustace inherited Kells from the now heirless family and fortified the monastery heavily due to the past attacks. Eustace was to add 7 tower houses and a huge courtyard which expanded the monastery to cover 3 acres and led to a later nickname of the 7 Castles. On Eustace's death in 1311, his nephew Arnold Lepoer would become Baron of Kells. In 1315, he would faithfully become a commander in the army of Edward II against Edward Bruce's invading army. Edward was the brother of King Robert the Bruce and would be made High King of Ireland upon his landing. After his coronation in 1317, he captured Kells. However, Edward would ultimately be defeated at the Battle of Fogart by an army led by Sir John de Birmingham and Arnold le Poer in 1318. His body was quartered and sent to the Irish towns, and the head to Edward II. In the years that followed, Lord Arnold le Poer was raised to Seneschal of Kilkenny, but his career was to be destroyed by a singular event that would become the first witch trial in the British Isles. The wheels had been set in motion a century before, starting in 1232 when the Inquisition was established by Pope Gregory IX as a movement against heretics and demons. In 1258, Pope Alexander IV then affirmed that sorcery and speaking with demons was a kind of heresy. This opened the doors for an attack in 1306 by King Philip IV of France, who used Pope Clement IV to destroy the Knights Templar. They were accused of heresy, witchcraft, and devil worship, and killed in mass executions. In 1316, Pope John XXII issued papal bulls on sorcery and pacts with Satan, and the next year, in 1317, a bishop in France was executed for an attempt on the Pope's life using witchcraft. That very same year, one Richard de Ledred became Bishop of Ossory, based at St. Canice's Cathedral in Kilkenny. De Ledred had been trained as a Franciscan in France and was involved in the later witchcraft trials there against the Templars and the enemies of Pope John XXII. Picked by him to lead the bishopric of Ossory, he immediately created a synod to make accusations against the clergy and asked the public to report heresy, creating an environment of paranoia. Most heretics and witches at the time were male and accused of necromancy or contacting demons and falling under their spell. Ledred would flip this notion by claiming that female witches instead offered sexual favors in exchange for assistance from demons. Soon word would come to him of a woman who had married many times named Alice Kyteler. Alice, by 1324, had been married 4 times and accused of poisoning her second husband in 1302. She was from a Flemish background and wealthy, having inherited from husbands who were merchants, a moneylender, and the mayor of Kilkenny, some £3,000, which was guarded by her son William. Alice was brought to Ledred's attention by the very angry stepchildren of these marriages who had seen her take a third of their father's inheritances. Their claims focused on her bewitching and then poisoning them with witchcraft. Arnold le Poer would quickly become entwined with the affair, as he was not only Seneschal of Kilkenny, but also the brother of Alice's ailing husband John. He was also a friend of her son, William Outlaw, and her relative, Roger Outlaw, the Chancellor of Ireland. By February 1324, Ledred visited Kells and Arnold, who had already held a dislike for him. Soon, Ledred demanded the arrest of Alice and her son William Outlaw. He first approached Roger Outlaw, the Chancellor of Ireland, claiming papal inquisitional authority over him in the matter. Roger denied the arrest unless 40 days had passed, a trial held, and the witches excommunicated. Ledred then summoned Alice before him, but she had already left for Dublin to plead her case to Roger. Alice was excommunicated, and William taken before the bishop, where he was charged with heresy. William, however, had the support of Arnold le Poer, the seneschal, who then took matters into his own hands, imprisoning Ledred for 17 days in Kilkenny Castle until the trial date of William passed, though he was allowed to carry on most duties while there. William Outlaw used this time to begin to search for accusations against the bishop and found an old one that he unsuccessfully used against him. On his release, Ledred demanded his full vestments in order to leave with a full show of authority along with the procession of priests. He then attempted again to have Alice and William tried, but was asked to Dublin to defend against claims by Arnold le Poer. He refused, claiming personal danger, and sent a representative instead. Ledred's next move was to arrive at Arnold's court and again demand the arrest of Alice and William. After being denied by him, he then re-entered with priests of various denominations and a book on heretics. Arnold then ejected him and ordered him to stand trial, as he was an ignorant, low-born vagabond from England. Ledred shouted in response, "Woe, woe, woe, that Christ should be sent to stand at the bar, a thing unheard of since he stood trial before Pontius Pilate." He then attempted to read the papal decree on sorcery to Arnold, who told him to take your decrees to church and preach your sermons there. Around this time, Ledred also attempted to have Roger Outlaw tried for heresy, but he was defeated in court when those in power vouched for him. Alice Kyteler struck back in court, saying that Ledred had excommunicated her without a conviction, and he again sent an agent, but lost the case. Eventually, Ledred was summoned again to Dublin with a royal letter and argued his case in front of other bishops against Arnold and William. In the meeting, Arnold spoke out aggressively against Ledred, claiming that no heretics had ever been found in Ireland, and Ledred, as a foreigner, was here to defame the nation. However, by then, Ledred had found new allies by making deals with other bishops and the Justiciar of Ireland. This gave him their support and allowed him to make his arrests. However, Alice, fearing the worst, had managed to escape to England along with her maidservant Petronilla de Meath's daughter, Basilia, possibly with the help of Roger Outlaw. Outraged at the turn of events, Ledred arrested Petronilla and 10 of Alice's friends and family, along with her son William. They were forced to confess, and William was made to submit to the bishop before being imprisoned. With help from friends, he was later freed after a £1,000 fee and an agreement to hear 3 masses every day for a year, give food to the poor, and cover the cathedral's roof in lead. For many, this confirmed Alice's wealth as Ledred's motive for the case. Shortly afterwards, he heard William was not carrying out his penance and imprisoned him again. Petronilla was tortured and forced to confess to being Alice's accomplice, as well as to 7 offenses, including denying Christ, cutting up living animals as offerings, secret meetings at night at the church, brewing love and death potions in a robber's skull, carnal knowledge of demons in the form of a black dog, cat, or man, using ointments on brooms to fly, and the use of sorcery to kill her husbands and take their wealth, including the ailing John Lepoer. Petronilla and other friends of Alice were then made to publicly admit their crimes while marched across 6 towns, flogged at each along the way, and then finally burned at the stake. After the burning, William asked to meet the bishop in prison and begged him in the mud in front of a crowd of priests to be freed. The new agreement would send him to the Holy Land on a pilgrimage, and he was forced to add more lead to the cathedral roof. The witch trial, torture, and burning would become the first in the British Isles and be one of the sparks that set off events leading to the death of some 200 to 500,000 witches in Europe between the early 1300s and 1650, with up to 85% being women. As for Alice's inn that she ran, it stands today as an attraction and one of the oldest in Ireland. Nearby stands Petronilla's restaurant dedicated to her handmaid. From here onward, Arnold's luck ran out. In 1327, the de Birminghams, along with the Fitzgeralds, would again burn Kells village and monastery. The next year, for his interference, Ledred would repay Arnold by making claims of heresy against him, causing his arrest. While Arnold languished in a Dublin prison, Ledred refused to come to his trial. 4 years later, in 1331, Arnold died, still excommunicated and untried. His body, under Ledred's command, was then left to lie unburied. The next year, the heavy roof of lead on Ledred's cathedral that William Outlaw had been forced to pay for collapsed under its own weight. During Arnold's imprisonment, Ledred was brought before the Irish Privy Council regarding charges made against the Archbishop of Dublin. He instead chose to flee to Rome to plead his case to the Pope. King Edward III, in response, sent a letter and the Archbishop to question the claims, causing the case to be dropped. Ledred was then exiled until 1347, when he returned as bishop, later dying peacefully in 1360 at the age of 90 or 100 years old. And so our wicked tale ends, and here the Priory fortress stands today, now sometimes known by locals as the 7 Towers or 7 Castles, for its unique fortifications that enclose a later added section called Burgess Court. The medieval gate still stands with its guard station. Beyond lies the area enclosed by 5 towers and walls that enclosed pens, workshops, mills, and farms, and was heavily guarded. Its main purpose was likely to herd people and animals into in case of a raid by the native Irish or enemy lords. Across from the court to the north, along the river, was the precinct, with all the monastic buildings including the villa of the prior. This area was just a cross-shaped building, but later extended around the time of the towers to become a large group of buildings. To its east is still the prior's tower, which remains the best preserved, but locked off due to restoration work. The towers are all gated off for safety, but you can still see the stairs and other internal features. This arrow slit would have allowed archers to shoot from above on the battlements and from below. The largest collection of remaining structures is in the Priory precinct. As you can see on this map, there are extensive ruins covering some 57 structures and rooms, with most clustered in the north near the river. We start out near the storehouses and kitchens and work our way in. While the finer details are gone, the site is still huge with large arches and halls. So after wandering the ruins for a while, you might be asking, how did the Priory meet its last days, and what left it in this ruin? After Arnold's death, his son Eustace took over Kells, but his reign did not last for long, as in 1346 he joined the Earl of Desmond in rebellion and was captured at the siege of Castle Island. He was hung, drawn, and quartered, and the barony was given to Walter of the de Birminghams, who had often attacked and burned it. He died in 1360, and his sister, who had married Robert de Preston, became the owner. Further conflict happened in Kells in 1398 when Roger Mortimer, Lord Lieutenant of Ireland, was killed by the O'Byrnes while riding in front of his army there. In 1446, the Earl of Ormond and Desmond broke into fighting, which caused Kells to be attacked again and often raided. By 1460, a Sir Christopher of the Prestons was the Lord of Kells. In the 1500s, the Priory was to see its last days, when in 1540 it was struck by the dissolution of the monasteries under King Henry VIII, with parts being used as a farm, the Prior's Tower as a cloister, and part of the rest as the parish church. In 1541, the lands of Kells went to James Butler, the 9th Earl of Ormond. In 1629, Patrick Comerford was made the Prior of Kells and Bishop of Waterford by Pope Paul V. In 1650, he was banished by Cromwell to France following his invasion of Ireland and the defeat of the Irish Catholic Confederation, who he had sided with. From there onwards, over the centuries, the Priory fell into ruin, with 2 new mills eventually built near to it. In 1893, it became a national monument. In windows like this one, stained glass like this has been reconstructed from buildings. While a few graves dot the inside, many are now gone, including marble memorials that were destroyed. In this building, the outlines of many graves can be seen. The main tower of the Priory is sealed off, and while there's no overseer here today, I hear you can get in if one happens to be present. A number of carved tombs lie along what was the cloister courtyard aisles. In the 1970s, a huge archaeological project was carried out which found some 20,000 artifacts, like tiles, glass, and pottery. Some of them seem to be possibly stored here in this room. We pass a small gate at what was once the Belfry Tower. This was part of the defenses comprising 7 outer towers, the Prior's Tower, a gatehouse, 4 gates, and a bastion. To the rear of the church lies the most interesting part for me, a forgotten cemetery that seems to date back to the 1700s. I would guess, however, that it was in use from much earlier from the unmarked graves of the poor, as newer graves are at the very small St. Kiernan's Church that we first showed you. The mossy, fallen, buried, and often burned graves here are both peaceful and poignant, seemingly completely unvisited. Along with so many forgotten dead, the ghost town of medieval Kells lies here too. All around us, a once thriving village has been revealed by modern aerial photography showing its streets and field walls that still lie under the landscape seen here. Today, Kells Priory remains a far less frequented site than the other Kells to its north. While there, we were the only people present, even across the river at the unused mills. In a sense, it's a ghost town, and abandoned due to a lack of traffic, now just a home to the memories of the victims of the dark crimes committed against them. If you get the chance, I recommend taking the time to see it and skipping better-known sites and tourist traps. You will not regret taking the detour to explore the Secret of Kells. Join us next time as we explore a castle's ruins and a story of murder that inspired TV's Game of Thrones' Red Wedding.